David Garrity, principal at GVA Research, joining us right now to talk about Apple's iPhone 4. David, who follows Apple, was one of the early callers back in June, expecting Apple to break its exclusive arrangement with AT&T. So, David, great to have you back with us.
Thank you.
What do you make of this flaw in the iPhone 4?
With respect to the iPhone 4, it starts to raise bigger questions about, is Apple really being successful in terms of managing its growth? I mean, certainly we've seen the acceptance that its new products have had, whether it's been the iPad or whether it's been the iPhone 4, and we've seen the volumes. The products basically have been flying off the shelves.
Right.
But to the extent that Apple comes out on a fairly regular cadence once a year with a new version of the iPhone, one would imagine that they would have the time to basically go through and make sure the product was properly executed and launched into the market correctly.
Especially considering people have been so angry about the dropped calls and have been blaming AT&T, right? So
exactly.
Even if Apple didn't go ahead and test their software for signal strength, why didn't somebody at AT&T say, hey, maybe it's not our fault, maybe we should test the iPhone?
True, true. But the other question to ask here is that, as we all know, that Apple certainly has positioned itself in the marketplace at a premium price point, primarily because of their design, primarily because their products work as well as they have historically. And now to have issues come out like this, and to have Apple take the position that, look, you've gone out and spent up to $300 to buy a phone, now go out and spend another $30 to fix the problem that we really created for you. This doesn't necessarily jibe well with a company that really cares significantly about consumers.
And that's what I think I find staggering. It sounds so un-Apple-like. I mean, we're Steve Jobs. I can't imagine that if they knew that there was problems, I mean, this seems like such an obvious problem, that he would let this out of the gate.
It does, and that's why it raises the question: is that is the company facing growth issues right now, such that certain significant details like this aren't being attended to?
But basic testing should have found this out.
Yes, one would say that.
Okay.
On the other hand, if you remember when the Macs first started coming out back when we were kids, they did have significant bug issues, originally with the operating system, right? And now you think of Apple as a flawless product because Macs and their MacBooks, their laptops don't ever break down. The iPhone, though, still is kind of in its infancy, just like the Mac OS was back then. Not
necessarily. I mean, the iPhone obviously is a product we know it's been around since 2007. You've gone through 4 iterations of the product by now. Apple back earlier, it was certainly a growth company, a startup company. Yes, there were execution issues. Now that the company had, sort of come back Phoenix-like from the ashes with Steve Jobs coming back to the helm, arguably should be all about execution, justifying the premium price points. Basically, the products are well designed, they work well. We don't have to worry about, we're getting good value. And now to have this issue come up, obviously, it's something which says, is Apple, given its size now, a startup? No, it can't be, because it's the largest company by market capitalization on the NASDAQ.
So what does Apple need to do in your view, David?
I mean, Apple basically has to focus on the fact that, customer loyalty is a long-term asset. They need to spend the money necessary to fix the problem.
Do they really lose customers off of this because?
I think that you'd start to see a shift in customer intention. I mean, certainly what keeps people on Apple is the fact that Apple has a very sticky ecosystem if you're a user. Your iTunes content can't shift to another device. You're kind of stuck in that regard. But if people start to get the sense that Apple is indifferent towards their experience,
they may go for a Droid.
Or they could look at, now you have Hewlett-Packard that has the Palm brand. Yes, they'll be coming out with something. There are a number of other choices out there in the marketplace for smartphones, not just the iPhone.
And for tablet computers, right? I mean, other makers are coming out with tablet computers, and here they're selling the iPad, which has what looks like now to be a dinosaur operating system, since it can't even multitask, which the new iPhone 4 can.
Exactly. So there are inconsistencies. And again, it goes back to the question, has Apple as a company outgrown its ability to scale efficiently and effectively?
All right. So then what? The Apple as we've known it and loved it is gone?
No, of course not. Of course not. I mean, Apple is a very, very strong company. I mean, anybody who's got the amount of cash on the balance sheet that they do certainly has the opportunity to go back and fix their missteps.
I wonder if it'll be harder than for, say, Toyota, because it's kind of the same thing, right? You expect safety from Toyota. They had those issues. They've got to deal with that at customer loyalty.
I haven't seen any iPhones flying down the freeway at 90 miles an hour.
That's a very good point. Yeah, they're not deadly issues, but...
That's true. But no, nonetheless, I mean, but the issue with the iPhone, I mean, it is something that can be fixed and for a reasonable amount of money.
We've got a few seconds left here, David. Does it change in terms of your outlook or rating on the company at this point or not?
We still see the company as being well positioned and what will arguably be a sluggish point in terms of this recovery. Yes, they've got very strong product cycles because you have a new iPod Touch coming out in September. And so from that standpoint, we're not stepping back from Apple, but we do have some questions.
Okay.
All right. David, We could talk about this all day long, but we have to take a break. David Garrity joining us there from GVA Research. We are going to take